Welcome to Cafecito con Courage. This is a Latina-powered California ballot discussion. We're going to be talking all things California ballot, breaking down the propositions for you, talking about the Latina power here in California. I don't know if you guys know, but we know how powerful the Latino vote here is in California. One, for the first time, Latinos are the largest ethnic group in the state. And we know that California Latinas are more likely to vote than their male counterparts. And 1 in every 6 California voters is Latina. So what does that mean? That means that Latinas have the power to decide the future of California, which is huge. And that is why we are here today, to ensure that we're all able to confidently vote our values when we make our voices heard on November 5th. So we all got our ballot, we all have our voice, and we want to use it. We want to use it in a way that's going to impact our communities. And that's why we're here today. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce some talented mujeres that are here with us today from partner organizations. And I'm going to start by letting them introduce themselves. So I will mute myself, and please hop on, ladies, and introduce yourself to our participants.
I can start off. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Yelitza Cervantes, and I'm the Regional Field Director at Communities for New California, and I'll pass it on to Jesse.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jesse Rodriguez. I am the Director of Operations with a research organization known as Data for Social Good, and I'll be sharing and going over some of our interesting findings relating to Latina voters. And I'll just pass it to Penelope.
Thank you, y'all. Hi, everybody. I'm Penelope Lopez. I pronounce her she, her, and I'm the organizing director at Chispa. I'm also a mama to a toddler, and I'm calling from Anaheim, California. Chispa is a political and organizing home for young Latinas ages 18 to 35. And our work is focused on the intersections of economic justice, immigration, and police accountability. And I'll pass it back to you, Angela.
Thank you so much, ladies. So with that, I just want to go ahead and do a couple housekeeping things. We're going to dedicate the first half of this meeting with us for Cafecito was going to be presentations, just talking about the different pieces that I discussed earlier, La Latina Power, our propositions, the ballot, and then we're going to dedicate the next half of our time together to questions. We want to make sure that everyone has all their questions answered. So that's how we're going to set this up. The first half is going to be recorded. That way we can share it, share the presentations. We can share it with our friends, our family. And then the second half will not be recorded. So feel free to ask any questions that you might have. We won't be recording that or spreading that part of the conversation. And the other piece is, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And then also when we get to the end, if you want to use the raise hand function, you're welcome to do that as well, so we can make sure to call on everybody and everybody gets their questions answered. And now we have a live poll. And our live poll is, what is your top priority issue from the following list? So when you vote, what is the thing that you're really looking for? And just a reminder, the interpretation services are available. So you can have it interpreted to Spanish on the bottom of the screen. And it looks like on the top of everybody's mind is affordable housing, with reproductive freedom as a close second, reducing violence with preventative and rehabilitative services, and access to healthcare. I think those are things that can all resonate with all of us, no matter where you are in the state. So thank you for participating in that. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to our friends at CNC and Data for Social Good to talk about their recent polling and all their findings, which I love polling. I'm a polling nerd, so let's go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angela. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you to Irene and everyone here at Courage, California for hosting this event and inviting us to come and speak and share with you all the work that it is that we do. And so before I pass it on to my amazing colleague, Jessie, I do want to give some background information as to who we are at CNC and what it is that we do and why we do it. So CNC believes in the mission statement of disrupting the concentration of power and the subsequent concentration of wealth. And we recognize that this often translates into our communities and our neighborhoods being left underfunded, under-resourced, and unfinished. And this is why we work diligently year-round to build rapport with community members, to help share resources with our neighbors in our neighborhoods, and to really highlight the voices of these community members and of residents across California. And this is why we teamed up with DSG, Data for Social Good, earlier this year in July to poll over 1,000 Latinas, because we recognize that Latinas, as Angela mentioned, is a growing population here in California, but they are often underfunded, underlooked, and it's time that we really highlight our voices and speak up. And so with that being said, I'll pass it on over to Jessie to kind of go into what it is that we did in terms of the polling earlier this year.
Thank you, Yelitza. So hello, everybody. Once again, my name is Jessie Rodriguez, and I help out with research through Data for Social Good. This research in particular was done in collaboration with CNC. And so, as she mentioned before, this was primarily targeting Latinas in California, and I'll just be reviewing some of the results split by regions. So just to give a little brief overview of what we're going to cover. Top priority issues within their community is the first section that we're going to be looking through. Then we're going to look at key findings regarding housing and civic engagement. And then from there, we'll jump into the Lúcete Latina campaign. And so for a little bit of additional context, the survey was conducted earlier this year within July, and we surveyed over 1,000 folks who identified as Latina and lived in California. We offered the survey in English and Spanish with a margin of error of about 3%. And we targeted an oversample of the Central Valley and the Inland Empire. So you'll see by regions, we define that through specific counties that fall under our categorization for the Central Valley and for Southern California. Okay, so jumping into this first section, the first question that we asked folks is to please rank from a list that we had, the topics that were most important to them right now. So looking at that list, the top 3 choices were affordable housing at number 1, jobs in the economy at number 2, and healthcare access and/or family planning at number 3. Now, splitting this by regions, we can see that the priority differs. So affordable housing, although it was the top choice in general, it seemed to be an even stronger issue for Southern California respondents and respondents from outside of these 2 regions that we identified, whereas jobs in the economy, as you can see highlighted there in yellow, was statistically significant for Central Valley respondents. So what that means is that the fact that they chose jobs in the economy as their top choice is more due to the reason that that was an option for them rather than it being like a number by chance. So this is just to stress that jobs in the economy is especially important for folks in the Central Valley, whereas affordable housing, it seems that it was a little bit more even spread out throughout the regions. Now, for these questions, depending on what the respondents put as their number 1, they would get a relevant or related sub-question. So if somebody put affordable housing was their top choice, then they got this question. I chose affordable housing because, and the top choices for this were rents are too high or there are not enough affordable homes to purchase in my area. For those who said jobs in the economy was their top issue, the number 1 reason was because the cost of living is making it difficult for me to afford the basics. After that, we got there are not enough high-paying jobs in my community as a number 2. And then lastly, for the number 3 choice, for folks that responded with healthcare access and or family planning as their top issue, the number 1 reason was because I have health insurance, but it's too expensive. And then the number 2 was because people do not have affordable access to contraception and reproductive care. So already we see the same three issues within the survey show up through the polling that we just did internally. So making that connection and realizing that these issues are transient, not just with Latinas, but a general population is something important to note. And then the next question that we asked or that we want to highlight here is which of the following best matches your opinion on the topic of reproductive rights and abortion? So respondents of all our regions supported body autonomy by some degree, over 50%, and we can see that distribution here. So the top choice was the government has no right to interfere with what a woman wants to do with her body. And then the number two choice is it's not for me, but it is a right that people should have. So those top two choices indicate some sort of support for body autonomy. And so just to summarize and review what we covered for this section, the top issues were affordable housing, jobs in the economy, and healthcare. And affordable housing was especially true for respondents from Southern California and other regions, whereas jobs in the economy was especially true for our Latinas from Central Valley. For healthcare, something else to note here is that this was significant for respondents from Southern California. And then when looking at the issue of reproductive rights, the majority of respondents believe that the government has no right to interfere with women's bodily autonomy, and this was true for all of our regions. Okay, so jumping into housing, I'm not going to really dive in too much with the data here, but I will provide a summary for you all. So we did ask a few different questions on housing related to housing status, barriers to home affordability, and a few other issues. So I'll just review that really quickly. More Latinas own their homes in the Central Valley than in other regions in California. So for the Central Valley, about 43% of our respondents said that they own their home, and in Southern California, it was only 40%. And then for other regions, regions outside of the Central Valley and Southern California, rent was the top housing situation. So that was true for 38% of our respondents. For those who do not own a home, they received a follow-up question asking what they identify as a top barrier to homeownership, and home affordability was the top choice there. For those who do own a home, we asked what their top reasons were, and they identified as stability for themselves and their household as the top reason for owning a home. We also asked what they identified as the greatest benefit, and that was financial stability and wealth accumulation. Lastly, we also asked a question on whether or not people were concerned about facing eviction or foreclosure, and although the majority of respondents said that they do not face those concerns, of those who do, about 76% of our Central Valley Latinas who do face those concerns don't know of any city or county resources available to them. Okay. And so lastly, we're going to go into our civic engagement questions here. One question that we asked is, what do you think are the best ways to change society for the better? So the top choice here, overwhelmingly for all of the regions, was voting. After that, we see that some priority issues vary depending on where folks are coming from. So bringing awareness of social and or political issues on social media was especially significant for respondents from the Central Valley and other regions, and not so much SoCal. And then discussing social and or political issues with friends and family, and boycotting companies and protest marches also saw some significance based on the regions that they were from. Okay. We asked, have you volunteered for any civic organization in the last year? For example, your children's school, church, union, food banks, or hospitals? And so interestingly enough, here we see that Central Valley Latina respondents reported the highest percentage of civic engagement here at 54.4%. And just a note here, these numbers are actually significantly higher than what the AmeriCorps volunteering data sheet publishes. So nationally, about 12.6% of Latinos report being civically engaged. And within this survey, we saw that a lot more folks said that they were involved. Okay. Next question we asked is, no matter how frequently you vote in elections, how much power do you feel your individual vote has to change things? So here we're trying to see people's perceptions of their own individual power in relation to these different types of elections that we identified. So throughout the city elections, county elections, and state level elections, we see that all of the regions, or just about all of the regions, said that they feel powerful at about 50% or higher. So I think that's something interesting and powerful to note there too. For state governor and presidential elections, Southern California respondents were especially significantly likely to believe that their individual vote power for the state governor election matters. And then looking at community perceptions of power. So again, this is looking at your own voting power versus the Latino community in general. We see that in both city and county elections, respondents from the Central Valley were more likely to say that the Latino community is neither powerful nor not powerful than the other regions. But we still see that there is a stronger sense of power when we're talking about the Latino community in general. So before we were in the 50%, here we're reaching in the comfortable 60 to almost 70%. Okay. And then for the state governor and presidential elections, again, for some of these regions, you see that there's a stronger sense of power, but still in general, people have a higher sense of community vote power. Okay, so just to summarize here, voting is seen as one of the best ways to change society for the better, and this was true for the majority of respondents. For respondents in the Central Valley, bringing awareness of social and or political issues on social media and boycotting companies were also seen as significantly likely to be chosen or identified as best ways to change society for the better. Now looking at vote power, Southern California respondents are likely to say that their individual vote is powerful on the state level and at the state governor elections. And then for local elections, city, county, state governor, presidential elections, Central Valley Latinas said that the Latino community is neither powerful nor not powerful. And then for volunteering or looking at civic engagement, the Central Valley does have the highest percentage of civic engagement within our respondent pool at 45.4%. Okay, so now I'll just pass it back to Yelitza, where she can cover why some of these results are especially important and significant through CNC's new Lúcete Latina program.
Yes, thank you so much, Jessie, for providing those amazing statistics for us. I really think these findings are super interesting and crucial as we approach the November election and as we continue to reflect on how our vote can really impact our futures and the future of California. And all of this to say that CNC is only one of the many organizations doing amazing work to mobilize and highlight the power of our people and of our voices. And in addition to our mission statement, as I mentioned before, this spirit is really what brought together this collaboration between DSG and CNC. We realized how important it was to dig deeper into the growing Latino population because CNC identifies this group, specifically Latinas, as a powerful voting bloc. And this image here is a sneak peek into our Lúcete Latina publication that I encourage you all to check out. We will be sharing the link with you all here today, so you guys can feel free to view that on your own time. And we recognize that as Latinas, we hold so much power. When it comes time to vote, every single vote counts, but we should all recognize that 1 in every 6 registered voters in California is a Latina woman. And so that translates to over 3.2 million Latina women eligible to vote in this upcoming election. And so I really love this fact because it really puts things into perspective, as did the polling that we just seen. And this is why it's important that we become familiarized with the ballot measures so that we can make informed decisions that align with our own beliefs. And we can really do this by researching each measure and understanding how they impact our communities. And some of the things that we can do is engage with local advocacy groups, attend informational sessions, such as the one we have here today, and just simply discussing with our friends, families, and loved ones to provide insights into how each measure reflects our personal values. And so this year's ballot, it will encompass many of the social issues that we have actually been discussing here today, as we've seen on the poll that we did, such as affordable housing, environmental protection, criminal justice reform, public education funding, and healthcare, just to name a few. And Penelope will elaborate further on these ballot measures, but I would just like to remind everyone that when it comes to earning the Latina vote, only the candidates who authentically engage Latina voters and demonstrate a plan to address these issues will earn the votes of Latino voters. And so again, I encourage you all to check out our Lúcete Latina publication. We also have here, you can see a YouTube series of 15 videos that really highlights and captures many stories of women across California and the issues that impact their communities, their neighborhoods, and things they want to change. And So just like yourself, these women have identified an issue in their community and would like to see a change in these issues. So here at CNC and everyone here, we really encourage everyone to stand strong and use your voice to go out and vote. And yeah.
Thank you, Yelitza and Jesse. Yeah, but as they mentioned, like ballot measures are proposed changes to the law that we get to weigh in directly in our ballot. And like Yelitza mentioned, this year, we're gonna see a lot of measures that can potentially like affect our daily lives, like such as housing, like healthcare, LGBTQ plus rights. But they can also undermine the progress that we have made as a community. And I'm feeling a little sick, so I'm sorry if my voice gives out throughout throughout my portion. But yeah, so in our ballot, we can see propositions like Proposition 2, which will directly address the disparities in of education infrastructure that disproportionately impacts working class communities and Latinx communities. And Proposition 3, which has the opportunity to solidify marriage equality in California by removing outdated and discriminatory language from the state constitution. Um, and also, Proposition 5, which I think, or at least I have seen a lot of propaganda against Prop 5. And I'm sure that maybe y'all have too in your screens through social media or through streaming services. But this proposition directly impacts our housing, which we know are critical to Latina and working class communities. And our communities are facing housing insecurity due to skyrocketing rents, and the Proposition 5 can lower that threshold, making it easier to fund affordable housing projects and essential public infrastructure. But yes, and so there's like measures like that, but there's also measures again that could really undermine the progress that our communities have made, such as Proposition 36, which I'm sure that we have seen, like the billboards, like the commercials, like the messages on the radio. And yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about Prop 36. And so Prop 36 is a state ballot measure that pretty much aims to undermine or kill like the progress made by Proposition 47 in 2014. Proposition 47 was a voter approved initiative in the November 2014 ballot that reduced felonies and misdemeanors for low-level drug and property crimes. Yeah, and like I mentioned, Proposition 36 would undermine the progress made by Proposition 47, and it would do so by promoting harsher sentencing for minor offenses. It can lead to increased incarceration that will particularly harm Latina, like Black and Black communities, and also those who are struggling with addiction or disabilities. And it would also cut $1 billion in the next decade from dedicated funding that address mental health treatment, victim services, and reentry and crime prevention programs. Yeah, and we know that our community, especially in Latinas, like can often be disproportionately impacted by policies that defund social services, such as mental health, housing, and substance abuse treatment. And so it's like really crucial that we as a community can identify and fight against misinformation campaigns. Proponent for Prop 36, which, are big money industries, such as like the retail industry, have used fear-based messaging that suggests that harsher penalties are going to make our community safer. But we know that that's not true. We know that the communities are safer when they have the most resources. And so by supporting, sorry, I'm like, and so the funding and support for Prop 36 again is coming from corporate retail lobbies and entities that will benefit from the increased incarceration of our communities. And I think we know that those propositions do not align with the well-being of our community and with our values. And so again, like Yelitza said, like it's crucial that now more than ever, that we are connected to to community organizations, like organizations like Courage, that are not only like fighting against this misinformation, but are actively advocating for investments in community-based solutions. Yeah, but I just wanted to share a little bit about that. My organization, Chispa, also has a ballot guide that we'd be happy to share. And yeah, we're also happy to answer any questions afterwards, but I'll pass it back to you, Angela.
Thank you so much, Penelope, and I hope you get some rest and feel better soon. So what we just heard is some of the really important propositions that are on your ballot that we'll be voting on or before November 5th. And it's important to note that there's so much more on this ballot than just the presidential election. And often you'll hear Californians mention, those who are not big voters mention, like, California's blue, California is going to go this way. We already know what California is going to do. But what we need to decide is what our communities are going to do, what our state's going to do, what our state legislators are going to do, what our counties, our city governments, what they're going to do, and how the people that we put in charge are going to continue running our state, and how the propositions we vote on are either going to pass or get rejected by us voters. So it's really important that we understand that these elections are much more than just a presidential election, which, takes up all the space come these elections. But there's so much more that impacts us here in California on the ground that we're going to be face to face with every day. So it is important that every Californian knows how to vote. If you're eligible, you're registered, you know your rights, you know where your polling places are, and you know what's on your ballot. And as Penelope mentioned, we are getting bombarded with ads. We know how much money goes into these ads. We know that if you see a lot of nice shiny ads, then they're probably really well funded. And they're probably really well funded by somebody that's not us community members. So it is always important to look at them with a little bit of a critical eye and find those organizations that speak to you, that serve your community, that you feel are doing the good work that reflect your own values. Organizations such as CNC, Chispa, Courage California Institute, these organizations that have trusted information that you can rely on, because those are the ones that are going to help you kind of decipher all of the mis or disinformation and shiny ads and get really down to the truth and how they will impact our communities. So I just want to make a little reminder that at the end of this, everyone's going to get the resources that we mentioned here today, from the ballot guides, the things you can share. And for those that are a little concerned about the C3, C4, these are all C3 friendly. So feel free to share them amongst your organizations and your community members. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Isidra to talk a little bit more about just voting in general in California.
Thank you so much, Angela, and buenos dias. Thank you all for joining us on a Saturday morning. My name is Isidra Chavez, and I'm here to remind you all to make your plan to vote. As we've already heard, and as we've all experienced, we've already endured several weeks of relentless campaign and ballot measure ads, and now we're finally down to just 3 more weeks before voting day. And now it is very, very important that we stay informed during this time, that we make our voting plan, and that we bring our friends, cousins, tias, parents, everybody to the polls with us. Now, a good place to start when creating your voting plan or when you're helping a friend or your family member to create theirs is to check your voter registration status. Some people have already received their ballots. I got mine on Friday. And if you're registered to vote, yours is on the way. But if you're not sure if you're registered to vote, or if you don't remember if you have your right address, please make sure to check your status and update your information. And make sure to check in with your younger siblings, your nieces, your cousins, everyone, and remind them that the deadline to register to vote is in about a week on Monday, October 21st. You can check out our voter tools with that bit.ly link there to check your registration status and register to vote. And once you get your ballot, it's research time. Joining us here today is a really great start, and if you have any questions about your ballot, please stick around for our Q&A coming up shortly. But we also have a Courage Know Your Vote voter resource guide that explains all of the different races and the 10 statewide propositions on your ballot. Our partners on this call have shared their resources, and we'll get those to you at the end of the call as well. And if you follow any other trusted organizations, advocacy groups, or news sources that you know provide reliable information, check to see if they have their own voter guides as well. Guides are a nice, easy, and quick way to get voter recommendations from the people you trust. But always, always do your own research. And especially with so much happening in our country and in the world, it's important that we stay informed and get our election information from reliable, trustworthy sources. And also that we call out misinformation and disinformation when we see it. We need to have those tough conversations with our loved ones when they do share AI-generated or fake or misleading posts on social media, as frustrating as those conversations might be, because there's simply way too much at stake this election. Lastly, make sure to find your county elections office, polling location, vote center, or nearest ballot drop box and make a plan to return your ballot early. And remember, you can return your vote by mail ballot at any ballot drop box or polling location in the state. If you're sending it in the mail, make sure that it is postmarked on or before Election Day to make sure it gets there and is counted on time. And don't forget to sign up for ballot tracking. The link is also there for that. I would like to just end by reminding you all here today that our communities, our voices, our values are so incredibly powerful, and so is our vote. So show up to the polls with confidence and pride to defend your values, and also the values of the people who came before you, who came here for a better life, and who still aren't allowed a seat at the table. Everyone wants the Latina vote, but only you know what is truly in the best interest for our community. Thank you all very much. I'll pass it back to you, Angela.
Thank you so much, Isidra. I appreciate it. And I heard somewhere that if you vote early, all those text messages stop. So get your ballot in the mail, drop it off. That way everyone will stop texting you. And with that, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about our voting plan. So there is another poll that we have for you. And this is, how are you planning to vote this election? And I'll say that I usually like to vote on election day because I'm a nerd and I like to go up on November 5th and put it in the slot and get my sticker. But I don't know. I kind of want those text messages to stop. So I might just break tradition. All right. So a number of you are going to drop off your ballot at the ballot box. We got the next one, return the ballot by mail and vote in person at the polling place. That's usually me, but I think I'm going to change this up a little bit. And I also want to remind folks that California loves to make voting easy. Like, we are in such a great state that really does. We do vote by mail. We have same day voter registration. There are so many ways that California really makes it easy to vote. We are lucky in that sense. When you see a lot of other states and they're really taking away a lot of access to voting. We have that right, and California makes it fairly easy. So please make sure you use your voice to vote. And, if part of your voting plan is to take your friends, take your family members with you to the polling place, like, I think that's great. So yeah, consider carpooling and taking some non-voters. I might be taking my sister to run an errand secretly and have her vote with me. Just to make sure she gets it in. So yeah, spread the word, spread the resources, and make sure your community comes out to vote as well, because those numbers are so important. We know how close some of these elections can get, and especially with some of these propositions that are on the ballot, there's so much money being thrown at them. Every community vote counts. So we need to make sure that we're turning up, because we don't want the money to decide our future. We want us, the voters, to decide the future and really come out and make our voices heard. So with that, I want to do a little mini thank you before we stop recording and move on to the Q&A section. So just another reminder, we'll be sending out all our resources today to all of our participants, and we will also be posting this first half of our presentation, so you'll be able to access it and share it with your friends and family to make sure that they have all the information and resources as well. And then if you do have any questions after this presentation, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to Courage California Institute at Courage CAINST, and that's on our Instagram. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter and all those fun places. And visit us at couragecaliforniainstitute.org for tons of C3 resources. We have great Know Your Power blog that talks so much about campaign finance, AI, disinformation. It's just really incredible stuff there. And also that we have county by county how to vote sections on that site as well. And then for Chispa, you can reach out to Chispa at chispa.oc to connect with them. They also have all the social medias, so reach out to them as well. And then CNC Education Fund at CNCEDFUND. And we will be sending out all this information as well. So if you didn't catch it, it'll be emailed. Yes, chispa.oc on Instagram. Send them a little thank you, send them a follow.